Hi guys. So with gardening, you never know what you're going to get from one season to the next. The one constant is that you get to join Mother Nature on an adventure and grow so many wonderful things. The idea of taking a small seed, planting it in the soil, caring for it, and then growing lots and lots of food for your family is just mind-blowing. So in 2024, I was able to grow hundreds of pounds of food in my relatively small backyard garden. Tomatoes to peppers to okra, potatoes, beans, even snuck in some squash and some pumpkins past the squash vine borer and the squash bugs. So it was very, very successful here. I was very excited. In this video, I'm going to share with you my top 8 goals for 2025. I'd like to welcome you to my backyard Kentucky homestead. My name is Kim, and let's get started. So the first one is going to be to have a low spend season. Over the last 2 years, I have invested quite a bit of money into developing infrastructure, dirt, plants, you name it. This year, I need to recoup a return on my investment. So my goal is to spend as little as possible using what I already have. I will need to get some potting soil for my green stalks and for the grow bags, and I will need to get some compost for the garden beds, but I should have just about everything else I need. So low spend year. I will finish the flower beds that I started last year. I'm going to be extending the one in the backyard, and I'll be using the perennials that I got on clearance at the end of last season, and also starting a whole bunch of things from seed. So low spend year is my number one goal. The second goal is to grow more vertically. I have, over the last several months, purchased a few other trellises that I did not have before. I have not got set up yet. And a metal garden gazebo, which I'll be sharing with you here soon. Absolutely love it. And I think it'll be just absolutely beautiful to have sweet peas and other things growing on top. It's just going to be gorgeous. So growing vertically is my goal number 2. Goal number 3 is to grow more of what we love. So fine-tuning the selection of varieties of each particular crop. So tomatoes, I had probably, 16 different tomatoes last year. But I don't need that many varieties. I want a lot of plants so that I have plenty of fruit. But I want to have paste tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, and some of the medium slicers. I may grow one beefsteak, like hillbilly maybe. That was actually a good one. But what I found with beefsteak tomatoes, they spend so much of their time and energy focusing on just a couple of fruit that you don't get a lot of production throughout the season. So I'm going to refine the varieties that I'm choosing. With peppers, I grew all kinds of hot peppers. We don't use a lot of hot peppers. So I'm going to focus on a lot more bell peppers so that I have a better harvest of those. Because I still haven't got a great harvest of bell peppers, so I'm going to focus on that this year. And also, I'll have the jalapenos, and I want to have more of the chili peppers. Because what I would really like to do is to can up the green chilies that you can buy in the little can. I'd love to make some of that myself. But I never had enough peppers at one time last year to do that. And I'm also going to be growing more okra, which kind of surprises me. I thought I had a lot of okra. I had it in like 3 or 4 beds. And I thought I'd have just picking it every day. But what I found, I have a freeze dryer, and I found that freeze drying the okra is amazing. It tastes just like fried okra. So if you like fried okra, it's perfect. But it's not greasy. It doesn't have breading. It's crunchy like a chip, and it's low calorie. So it is a fabulous side for lunch. It gives you that crunchy texture, satisfaction of a chip without any of the calories, with very few calories. So I'm going to be growing more okra, which surprises. I'm also going to focus on more intentional succession planting. This past season, I was basically throwing squash in any pocket that opened up because I was having such problems. Usually people can grow zucchini and they have it coming out their ears. So I'm lucky if I get just a couple per season. I have some plans this year to help improve that. But last year I was just throwing squash everywhere. I want to be a little bit more intentional. I want to grow more beans, especially green beans. I did not have enough of those. Also, I want to, one thing that I found with my tomatoes this past year, I had 2 indeterminates that were left on the patio behind another pot. So that when I put my regular indeterminates out there at the end of April, I missed those 2. I kept watering them. It's like, I'll find a spot for them eventually. When I did, it was early part of June. And what happened was that come the latter part of July and into August, they were producing beautifully. And they didn't have all of the disease and blight that my other initial tomatoes had. So even though I started the seed at the same time, by the time I got them planted out, they were still smaller, and they were just produced so much longer because they weren't hit with blight so early. So I'm going to do that again this year, as well as having determinants and being more intentional with determinant tomatoes, so that I can have 2 crops of those, and maybe even 3 if I do 2 summer crops and then do a 3rd one for fall. I think that might work. So I have to schedule that out. So one of the things that I started for 2024 but did not get finished because the cold weather hit so fast, just ran out of time, was to do hoop covers for the garden beds. And what I want to do with that is to extend my growing season, also to fend off some of the pest pressure. So what I want to do is put the frost cloth on it, or even plastic potentially, in the latter part of February and early March, to see if I can get my brassicas out sooner. Because they says 60-day maturity, but for some reason mine seem to take 30 days more than that before they're ready to harvest. So I'm going to get my brassicas out earlier. I'm going to go ahead and start them this week. It's it's January 1st. I'm going to go ahead and start my brassicas this week, so hopefully again have a larger plant to put out, so it's a little bit ahead of the game. And then just use that to fend off the frost. And then when the temperatures start to warm up, I'm going to change that to insect netting so that I can prevent the cabbage moth from landing on it. Hopefully the harlequin bugs and the squash bugs and the squash vine borer especially. I know they can lay eggs in the dirt, so I will have to keep an eye on that. But hopefully I can prevent anything coming in from the outside and killing my plants. Because like the cucumber beetles, the squash vine borer, the squash bugs, oh my goodness, they are just a nemesis. So we'll keep an eye on the internal part of the garden, and what that will mean with the plants. Now, the cucumbers, I'm going to do parthenocarpic, which is female-only flower cucumbers, and they will set fruit. I've actually got some in my grow room right now growing, and they will set fruit without pollination. So I'm going to use those and cover those with netting to keep the bugs off. And then for the squash, they will have to be hand pollinated, but that is not a problem. I can do that. I love playing in the garden, so I'm willing to do that if I can get some squash and some pumpkins. I'd love to get some of those really big pumpkins because I haven't got that. I've got a few last year. I got 3 of the baby bear pumpkins that were about that big, and then 1 of the Connecticut field pumpkins that only got about that big because it ripens so early in the season. So anyway, really excited about that. So the other thing I'm going to change with regards to dealing with the pest pressure is to go to a Machado squashes. Those are like your butternut squash, your Dutch fork pie pumpkin, which I was able to get those seeds from So True Seeds out of Asheville, North Carolina. So the Machado squash has a round stem, and it is a little tougher for the vine borer to dig into that. So it's not their preferred type of environment. They like the Peppo squashes and the Maximo squashes because they have a more hollow stem that's thinner. So I'm going to go to a lot more of the Machado. I will do some of the other ones. I haven't decided exactly what I'm going to do yet, but again, I'm going to cover them and then hand pollinate them. And with the, I was able to actually get some butternut squash this year, so that was awesome. And the other thing I'm going to do for pest pressure is my blueberries. I had a lot of blueberries last year. It was the first full season for my blueberry plants, and they were loaded with blueberries. I got some of them, but they were just about ready to pick, and then poof, they were gone. Like, really? I knew about the birds, but I was like, yeah, they're leaving them alone. It'll be fine. It wasn't. So I'm gonna net up the blueberries as well as the blackberries and the raspberries. So that is my goal number 4: extending the growing season and protecting against the pests. Number 5 is to conserve water and to be more intentional with my compost creation. I had most of my garden beds on drip irrigation this past year. I also had some of the flower beds I got up on drip. It worked really, really well, but I didn't have everything on drip. Also wasn't really excited with how the drip line worked in the garden beds. They did great in the flower beds because you had to wrap them around, and that worked well. In the garden beds, I really wasn't as happy with how the water distributed throughout the bed. So this year I'm going to switch that to drip tape, and then I'm going to take the line that was in the garden beds and move that to some of the other flower beds that I need to put on irrigation. So my goals are to finish the irrigation in the flower beds that are newer, add irrigation to all of the beds that I added in the fall of this year, and then get all of those garden beds switched over to drip tape. Because my water bill this past year was insane. It was. I also want to get all of the pots and grow bags that I have throughout, will have throughout the garden on drip as well. I got some of that done this past year and it really, really helped. But watering by hand takes a lot of water, probably too much, more than you need. And hopefully we'll get more rain. Right now we are getting an exorbitant amount of rain, kind of similar to what we did last winter. But I am collecting it in a rain barrel, so that's another thing I'm going to use, is to collect the rainwater in the rain barrel so that I can use that to then water anything like the green stalks and any pots that are on the patio, because I can't really get those on drip very easily with how it's set up. I'd be having to walk over the lines, and I really don't want to do that. And as far as composting, I do have compost out there, but I have not been consistent with that. So I want to make sure that I'm composting my kitchen scraps, as well as any garden debris that is not diseased. You do not want to, anything that has blight or mold or anything like that. You really don't want to add that to your compost, but anything else, go ahead and get that in the compost, get that rotating. I have my bin right now, I have one of those rolling barrel bins. It is really, really full, so I'm hoping to have some good compost come April, but we'll see. But that will also go back into reducing the amount of money I have to pay out to buy compost to put on the garden beds. But they need that every year. Number 7 is to have a pollinator-friendly garden, which I've worked on the past couple of years. I'm going to continue that. I'm going to have even more flowers this year, both in the garden beds around the yard, but actually within the garden itself. So some of those will be planted in the beds with the vegetables and also in grow bags around the entire garden. So to bring in the really good pollinators and maybe even the hummingbirds, they're so pretty to see, but just to really have a really healthy garden with that. And my final goal for 2025 is to keep a garden journal and to weigh all of the produce that I pick from the garden. I started it last year a little bit, didn't get very far. I've started it again already. I've journaled in it this morning. So I'm going to keep track of what I'm growing, how much I'm growing, how it's doing. And I think that'll help a whole lot with future years of gardening. So anyway, those are my 8 goals. I would love to hear what your goals are for 2025. If you would leave a comment below, I'd love to see that, see what everyone's working on. If you're interested in some of my gardening videos from last year, check out this playlist. And until the next time, I hope you have a very wonderful day and a Happy New Year.